The fog was thick and oppressive, a shroud that swallowed the world outside my car. My knuckles white with tension as my hands clutched the steering wheel. I crept along the winding road that led through the countryside. Tonight, I was on a mission. My heart raced as I remembered the story my grandmother had told me, the legend of the ghost girl who wandered these misty roads, searching for something lost. My grandmother had spoken of her in hushed tones, recounting the tale as if it were a dark secret. The ghost girl, a forlorn spirit, was said to appear on nights like this one, a pale figure moving silently through the mist, face obscured by long, tangled hair. I had dismissed the story as mere folklore, a cautionary tale to keep curious children from wandering too far from home. But tonight, I was on a quest to prove its falsehood. The fog grew thicker as I drove deeper into the countryside, my visibility reduced to a few feet ahead. The world beyond my headlights ceased to exist, and the sense of isolation was suffocating. I could feel the weight of the legend, the eerie presence of the ghost girl lingering in the air. As I came to a crossroads, the engine idled and I sat in the car. Then, as if conjured by the legends themselves, I saw her, a pale figure standing in the middle of the road, her long hair hanging like a curtain over her face. I stared, frozen in terror. She didn't move, didn't make a sound. She just stood there, her presence a silent reproach to my skepticism. It couldn't be real. It had to be a trick of the fog, a hallucination brought on by the creepy atmosphere. I could feel her eyes on me, even though her face was hidden from view. It was as if she were beckoning me, urging me to come closer. Curiosity compelled me to step out of the car. The mist was cold against my skin as I approached her, my breath visible in the air. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice trembling with fear. The ghost girl said nothing, her head tilting slightly, as if considering my question, and then, with a haunting grace, she turned and began to walk down the road. I hesitated for a moment before following her, the damp earth soft beneath my feet. The mist closed in around us, obscuring the world and making me feel as though I had stepped into another realm. We walked in silence for what felt like hours, the only sound the soft, ghostly echo of her footsteps. I had no idea where we were headed, but I couldn't stop myself from following, my curiosity overwhelming my fear. Eventually, we arrived at a dilapidated farmhouse, its wood creaking in the breeze. The ghost girl paused in front of the house, her hair shifting to reveal the side of her face. Her eyes, empty and mournful, met mine for the first time. I felt a chill in my bones as I realized that she was leading me here. But why? With a slow, deliberate movement, the ghost girl raised her bony hand and pointed to the farmhouse. It was as if she were guiding me inside, urging me to uncover the secrets within. Against my better judgment, I approached the decaying structure, the wood groaning underfoot. The front door hung open and the interior was swallowed by darkness. I hesitated on the threshold, my heart pounding, my breath shallow. And then, with a sudden burst of courage, I stepped inside. The air was heavy, with the scent of decay and damp. Walls were adorned with faded, peeling wallpaper. It was a place forgotten by time, a relic. I could hear the ghost girl's footsteps behind me, her presence a haunting apparition at my side. She led me deeper into the house, to a room at the end of a narrow corridor. Inside the room, I saw it, a small, dusty crib. My heart ached as I realized the truth. This had been the ghost girl's room, her childhood home. I turned to her, my voice barely a whisper. "What happened here? Why are you showing me this?" The ghost girl's eyes remained fixed on the crib, her gaze unblinking. And then, in a faint, mournful voice, she spoke.
"They took me away,"
she said, her words barely audible. "They took me from my home, from my family. I was lost, alone, and forgotten." Tears welled in my eyes as I realized the tragic truth. The ghost girl had been torn from her family, her life cut short, and she had been doomed to wander these foggy roads in search of something she could never find. I reached out to her, my hand trembling, but she faded away like mist, disappearing into the shadows. I was left alone in the decrepit room, the weight of the ghost girl's story heavy on my heart. As I left the abandoned farmhouse and stepped back into the thick fog, I knew I could never prove or disprove the legend. But one thing was certain. The ghost girl was real, her presence a haunting reminder of the past. And as I drove away, I couldn't help but wonder if she would ever find the peace she had been searching for, or if she would forever be condemned
To roam these foggy roads.
Rain fell in heavy sheets, obscuring my vision and making the road glisten like a treacherous path to the unknown. I clutched the steering wheel and tried to shake off the unease that had settled in the pit of my stomach. I was on a desolate stretch of road, miles away from civilization. My late-night journey had been a necessary evil, but now, as the relentless rain drummed against the car, I questioned the wisdom of my decision to drive through the night. The windshield wipers worked tirelessly, but they did little to alleviate the downpour. Thunder rumbled ominously in the distance, and the wind howled like a ghostly choir. The darkness outside seemed to press in on all sides, as if the night itself were a living, breathing entity. I glanced at the dashboard clock. It was past midnight. Fatigue started to set in, and I longed for the comfort of my bed, but I had miles to go before I could rest. As I continued down the road, I couldn't help but feel as though I was being watched. The sensation of being observed grew stronger with each passing mile, and I found myself constantly checking the rear view mirror, searching for any sign of another vehicle. But the road remained empty, and the feeling of unease only intensified. I told myself it was just my imagination, a product of the lonely road. Yet the feeling persisted like a heavy weight on my shoulders. Suddenly, my heart leaped into my throat as I saw it, a pair of headlights in the rear-view mirror. Another car was approaching from behind, its lights piercing the darkness. Relief washed over me as I realized I wouldn't be alone on this road any longer. I slowed down, allowing the car to come alongside mine. It was a sleek black BMW, its windows tinted so dark that I couldn't see the driver. The car matched my pace, and I felt a strange mixture of comfort and unease. As I glanced over, the driver's side window rolled down, revealing an empty seat. My heart skipped a beat, and I stared in disbelief at the vacant space. There was no one driving the car, yet it continued to match my speed. A cold chill raced down my spine as I focused on the road ahead. I couldn't explain it. It defied all logic. How could a car be moving without a driver? The ghostly vehicle remained alongside me, the empty driver's seat a haunting reminder of the impossible. Panic welled up inside me as I realized I needed to get away from this eerie presence. I hit the gas, my tires squealing as I accelerated down the rain-soaked highway. The ghost car kept pace with me, its headlights casting long, sinister shadows on the road. My heart hammered in my chest as I pushed my car to its limits, desperate to escape. No matter how fast I drove, the ghost car stayed with me. It was as if it had no intention of letting me go, as if it were pursuing me with a purpose. I knew I had to do something, anything, to break free from this terrifying chase. I swerved onto a side road, hoping to lose the ghost car in the labyrinthine network of streets. But it followed, its presence unwavering. I drove through the winding streets, my heart pounding with fear. My mind raced for a solution, a way to escape this supernatural pursuit. It was then that I remembered the story my father told when I was a kid, the legend of a ghost car that haunted these very roads, seeking out unsuspecting travelers and driving them to madness. As the legend went, the ghost car had no driver, no physical form. It was an entity of pure malevolence, a harbinger of doom that would follow its victims until they were driven to the brink of insanity. Terror surged through me as I realized that I was now a part of that legend, a victim of the ghost car's relentless pursuit. There was no escaping it. No matter where I turned, it followed, its dark presence a constant reminder of the impossible. The minutes turned into hours, and my exhaustion grew. I couldn't keep up this frantic pace forever. My mind was clouded with fear, and I knew I had to find a way to break free from this nightmare. Desperation fueled my actions as I pulled onto a bridge that spanned a deep ravine. I knew it was a risky move, but I had no other choice. I pressed down on the gas and sped toward the edge of the bridge. As my car hurtled toward the precipice, I closed my eyes and braced for impact. But instead of the bone-jarring crash I expected, there was nothing. Silence. I cautiously opened my eyes and found myself on the other side of the bridge, my heart still racing, but the ghost car was nowhere in sight. It had vanished, as if it had never existed. Relief washed over me. I had escaped the ghost car, but I knew that the memory of that night would haunt me forever. The legend had become all too real, a terrifying reminder that some horrors are not bound by the laws of the living. As I drove away from that desolate road, I couldn't help but wonder if the ghost car still roamed those dark highways, searching for its next victim. The night stretched endlessly before me, a vast expanse of darkness broken only by the feeble glow of my headlights. Rain pounded relentlessly on the windshield, making it difficult to see the road ahead. I had never been a fan of night driving, but this was different. I had promised my sister I'd be there for her no matter what, and I couldn't let her down. She had called me in a panic, her voice trembling as she begged me to come to her aid. She had been stranded at a remote cabin in the woods, and there was something out there, something she couldn't explain. The GPS guided me deeper into the forest, the winding road surrounded by towering trees that seemed to reach out and swallow the night. Finally, I arrived at the cabin. It was nestled deep in the woods, surrounded by a thick curtain of trees. The rain had let up slightly, and the headlights revealed a flickering porch light, the only sign of life in the darkness. I parked the car and rushed to the door, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and anticipation. I knocked, and after what felt like an eternity, the door creaked open. My sister stood there, her face pale and drawn, her eyes filled with a mix of relief and terror. "Thank God you're here," she whispered, pulling me inside. "I don't know what's out there, but it's not human." She told me her story, her voice trembling as she recounted the events of the past few nights. Strange noises had filled the cabin, whispers in the dark, scratching at the windows and footsteps outside that left no trace in the mud. It had escalated to the point where she was too terrified to stay alone. I tried to calm her down, assuring her that it was probably just animals or the wind, but I couldn't deny the unease that settled over me. The cabin felt suffocating, as if it held its breath, waiting for something to happen. As the night wore on, I heard the noises for myself, whispers in the walls like a chorus of voices too faint to make out words, scratching at the windows that sent shivers down our spines. And then, the footsteps outside, unmistakable and eerie in their silent persistence. My sister clung to me, her tears soaking my shoulder as we huddled together in the dimly lit cabin. We didn't dare look outside, too afraid of what we might see. Hours passed, and exhaustion began to creep in. We couldn't keep our eyes open, no matter how hard we tried. I glanced at the clock. It was nearly dawn. Maybe, just maybe, we had made it through the worst of the night. But as the first light of day began to filter through the windows, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The footsteps outside had stopped, and the cabin was eerily silent. There were no more whispers, no more scratching, just an oppressive stillness that hung in the air like a dark cloud. My sister and I exchanged uneasy glances, our fear mounting with each passing second. We knew we couldn't stay in that cabin any longer, that we had to make a run for it while there was still daylight. With trembling hands, we gathered our things and made our way to the door. I hesitated for a moment, my hand on the doorknob, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for us on the other side. But we had no choice. I flung the door open and we bolted out into the daylight. The cabin was surrounded by dense forest, and as we ran through the trees, I couldn't help but glance over my shoulder. And there it was, a figure, tall and shadowy, standing just at the edge of the woods, its eyes fixed on us with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. It was like nothing I had ever seen before, a dark presence that seemed to defy the laws of nature. We didn't stop running until we reached the safety of my car. My sister stared out the window, her eyes locked on the cabin, waiting for that figure to emerge from the trees. But it never did. Finally, the engine roared to life, and I hit the gas with all the strength I could muster. We sped away from that cursed cabin, leaving the nightmare behind. As we drove, my sister and I exchanged haunted glances, knowing that we had narrowly escaped something otherworldly, something beyond our understanding. The fear and unease lingered, a constant reminder that the darkness held secrets we could never comprehend. We reached the nearest town, where we reported the strange events at the cabin to the local authorities. They promised to investigate, but I could tell they didn't believe us. To them, it was just another spooky story from the woods. But my sister and I knew the truth. We had witnessed something that defied explanation, something that had shaken us to our core. And as we drove away from that small town, leaving the horrors of the night behind, we couldn't help but wonder what other terrors lurked in the darkness.